edge of Beaverton, Oregon, where I grew up. The paint on the siding is starting to peel, the gutters sag a little, and the driveway has the same oil stains it's had since I was 16 and learning how to change brakes on my first junkyard Civic. Nothing much has changed, including me. I fix pipes for a living now. Plumbing contractor, self-employed, nothing glamorous. I come home smelling like PVC glue and wet dirt, eat whatever mom leaves on the stove, and disappear into my room. 3 years ago, my girlfriend of 5 years decided she wanted someone who actually had a future. The word still rings sometimes when it's quiet. So, I keep it quiet. Tonight was the annual block party barbecue. Same folding tables, same potato salad nobody eats, same string lights somebody bought at Costco 5 years ago and never took down. I only showed up because mom gave me the look, the one that says I'll hear about it for weeks if I hide in the basement again. So I put on a clean flannel, grabbed a root beer, and stood near the dessert table pretending to care about Mrs. Henderson's lemon bars. That's when Juliet Harper walked out of her back door. Everyone noticed, they always do. She lives 2 houses down in the cedar and glass place her husband designed before he wrapped his Porsche around a tree on Highway 26 6 winters ago. Juliet used to run creative for one of the big agencies downtown. Now she's 46, a widow, and the most untouchable thing this suburb has ever seen. Tonight she was wearing a simple black dress that stopped just above the knee, sleeves long, neckline low enough to remind every husband here why they were in trouble with their wives. Her hair was twisted up loosely, a few strands loose around her face, lips painted the color of fresh blood, one hand holding a glass of red wine like the night belonged to her. I was halfway through pretending to listen to Mr. Patel talk about his new sprinkler system when she passed behind me. Close. Too close. The scent of something dark and expensive, jasmine, maybe, and smoke, slipped under the barbecue smell and hit me like a slap. She stopped, leaned in until her lips almost touched my ear. Her voice was low, amused, and meant for me alone. "They're watching," she whispered. "Kiss me," while they're still wondering if they saw it right. My whole body locked, heart punched against my ribs so hard I was sure the whole block could hear it. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe. She waited 2 full seconds, just long enough for the moment to burn, then pulled back half a step. Her eyes were laughing, sharp and wicked. "Kidding," she said softly, loud enough only for me. "Unless you forgot how to play." Then she was gone, gliding back into the crowd like nothing had happened, wineglass catching the string lights, leaving every head turned and every conversation just a beat too late to recover. I stood there holding my root beer, condensation dripping down my wrist, staring at the empty space where she'd been. Someone laughed too loud. Someone else coughed. My mom called my name from across the yard, but the sound felt miles away. I set the bottle down, walked straight through the side gate, past the garbage cans, and into our dark house without saying goodbye to anyone. Upstairs, I sat on the edge of my bed in the same clothes, hands still shaking. The window was open. I could still hear the party, the music, the voices rising and falling. But all I could hear over and over was her voice in my ear. "Kiss me." I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling and felt the night tilt, slow and irreversible, onto a path I wasn't sure I was brave enough to follow. The next morning, I woke up with the taste of her words still in my mouth. The house was quiet. Mom had already left for her shift at the library. I pulled on yesterday's jeans, splashed water on my face, and told myself I'd act normal. Take the trash out, check the work messages, forget the whole thing. I opened the front door with the bag in my hand and stopped dead. Juliet was on the other side of the low cedar fence that separates our properties, barefoot in the grass, watering the lavender that grows wild along the border. She was wearing an oversized white men's dress shirt, sleeves rolled high, top 3 buttons undone. The morning sun cut through the cotton and made it almost transparent. Her hair was piled on top of her head with a pencil stuck through it. She looked like she'd just rolled out of someone's bed, and the thought punched me so hard I nearly dropped the trash bag. She glanced over, didn't flinch, didn't smile right away. Just let the hose run while she studied me like I was a problem she already knew how to solve. "Sleep well?" she finally asked, voice low and lazy. I managed a grunt. My face felt hot enough to fry eggs. "Or were you up all night regretting that you didn't take me up on my little offer?" I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. She turned the hose off, shook the water from her fingers, and walked the 3 steps to the fence, close enough that I could smell the lavender on her skin and something warmer underneath. "You're blushing, Rowan," she said, amused. "It's cute." I found my voice somewhere near the ground. "Most people say good morning. Good morning is boring." She reached over the fence, plucked a fresh sprig of lavender, and without breaking eye contact, slipped it into the breast pocket of my t-shirt, right over my heart. Her fingertips brushed my chest for half a second, long enough to brand me. "I don't like repeating games," she said, "but I do love finding out how long someone can stand the heat before they either step closer or run." She let that sit between us like smoke. Then she smiled. The slow, dangerous smile I'd already started seeing every time I closed my eyes, and turned back toward her house, hips moving under that shirt like she knew exactly what she was doing to me. I stood there holding a bag of trash and a sprig of lavender, feeling 17 different kinds of stupid and alive. It didn't stop there. She started showing up in small, precise doses, always when I wasn't ready. Monday, I was under the hood of my work van in the driveway, covered in grease, radio playing old Springsteen. She walked past with the dog she never leashed, wearing running shorts and a tank top, earbuds in, pretending she didn't see me until she was right beside the open hood. "Need an extra pair of hands?" she asked, leaning in just enough that I caught the scent of her sweat and whatever expensive soap she used. I straightened too fast and cracked my head on the hood. She laughed, not kindly, and reached up to rub the spot I'd hit, her thumb lingering. "Careful," she murmured. "I'd hate to damage the only interesting thing in this zip code." Then she was gone again, jogging off down the street like nothing happened. Wednesday evening, I was on the back porch drinking a beer, trying to pretend I wasn't watching her house. She appeared on her own porch in a silk robe the color of midnight, holding 2 glasses of red wine. She raised one in my direction, took a sip, and disappeared inside without a word. Friday, I came home late, bone-tired, and found a small brown paper bag hanging on my front doorknob. Inside was a single Polaroid, her bare shoulder, the strap of a black bra sliding down and written on the white border in Sharpie, "Coward." I slept with that picture under my pillow like a teenager. Every time I thought about walking over and knocking on her door, something in my chest seized up. She was 46. I was 27. She'd run creative for million-dollar campaigns while I crawled under houses fixing leaky showers. She'd been married to a man who built houses like hers. I still had student loans and a twin bed in my mother's house. But every time I tried to talk myself out of it, I remembered her breath against my ear at the party, the way she'd said my name like it already belonged to her. By the end of that week, I was a wreck, jumpy, short-tempered, walking around half-hard and fully haunted. I couldn't look at Lavender without my pulse spiking. I caught myself staring at her house from my bedroom window at 2 in the morning, watching the soft glow of her upstairs light and wondering what she was doing, what she was wearing, whether she was thinking about me the way I was thinking about her. She'd turned the quiet street I'd hidden on for 3 years into a minefield. And the worst part, the part that scared me most, was that I didn't want it to stop. Saturday came gray and cool, the kind of Oregon morning that can't decide if it wants to rain. My phone buzzed while I was still in bed, half dreaming about red lipstick and the smell of smoke. Unknown number. 1 line. Need help clearing the attic. Bring strong arms and no questions. J. I stared at the screen for a full minute. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, then typed the only thing I could manage. Be there in 10. I threw on a clean Henley, work boots, and the same jeans I'd worn all week because they still carried a trace of that lavender she'd tucked into my pocket. Mom was at her Saturday book club, so the house was empty. I crossed the 2 lawns between us like I was walking into a storm I'd been waiting for my whole life. She opened the back door before I could knock. Bare feet, black leggings, another oversized white shirt. This one definitely her late husband's, sleeves rolled to the elbows, collar slipping off one shoulder. Hair loose, a few strands stuck to her cheek. She looked like she'd been up for hours and still managed to look like trouble. "Took you long enough," she said, stepping aside. I walked past her into the kitchen. The house smelled like coffee and something darker, sandalwood maybe. Everything was sleek lines and expensive quiet, the opposite of our cluttered split level. She led me up the narrow staircase to the attic door without another word. The attic was bigger than I expected, a finished space under the eaves with slanted windows letting in pale light. One half was stacked with boxes labeled in neat black marker. The other half was a graveyard of her old life. Light stands, seamless backdrops, a dozen vintage cameras on shelves, framed prints leaning against the wall like ghosts. She handed me a pair of leatherwork gloves. Start with those boxes on the left. They go to Goodwill. Everything else stays. I nodded and got to work. She moved beside me, silent at first, pulling dust covers off equipment, running her fingers over things like she was saying goodbye or hello. I couldn't tell which. After 20 minutes, I lifted a flat cardboard box and a stack of large black and white prints slid out. I caught them before they hit the floor. The top one stopped my heart. Juliet, maybe 25, naked to the waist, arms crossed just enough to keep it art, eyes staring straight into the lens like she already knew every secret the viewer was hiding. The photo was raw, fearless, beautiful in a way that made my throat tight. I looked up. She was watching me. That was a lifetime ago, she said quietly. Back when I thought being untouchable was the same as being powerful. I set the print carefully on the table. My voice came out rough. You still look untouchable. She gave a small, sad smile. That's the trick, isn't it? Looking like you don't need anyone, so no one sees how much you do. She stepped closer, took the print from my hands, and laid it face down with the others. Then she reached up and brushed a streak of dust from my cheek with her thumb. The touch was soft, deliberate. I used to think I was most beautiful when no one dared come close, she said, barely above a whisper. Now I'm starting to wonder what happens when someone finally does. Her fingers slid from my cheek to the collar of my shirt, straightening it like she had every right. I could feel her breath, warm and steady, inches away. My pulse was hammering so hard I was sure she could see it in my neck. I want to know, she continued, eyes locked on mine, how you're different from all the ones who looked, wanted, and then ran the second they realized I might actually let them in. I swallowed. The air between us felt charged like the moment before lightning. I'm not running, I said. It came out rougher than I meant. She studied my face for a long second, then let her hand drop, fingertips trailing down my chest before she stepped back. Good, she said, because I'm tired of watching people leave. We worked the rest of the afternoon in near silence, passing boxes, brushing arms, sharing the same 3 feet of dusty floorboards like it was the most natural thing in the world. Every accidental touch, her shoulder against mine, my hand steadying her when she reached too high, felt like a question neither of us was ready to answer out loud. When the last box was stacked by the door, she poured 2 glasses of water from a pitcher she'd brought up earlier. We sat on the floor with our backs against an old velvet sofa, knees almost touching, the attic quiet except for the soft creak of the house settling. She turned the glass in her hands. My husband took most of those photos, she said suddenly. He said I was the only thing he ever wanted to keep in focus. I didn't know what to say to that. She looked at me sideways. I haven't let anyone up here since he died. I met her eyes. Why now? She didn't answer right away. Then she leaned over, slow, deliberate, and rested her head against my shoulder just for a second, like she was testing whether I'd hold still. Because you haven't run yet, she whispered into the fabric of my shirt, and I'm starting to hope you never will. I sat frozen, afraid to breathe, afraid to move, afraid the moment would shatter if I did anything at all. She stayed there long enough for me to feel the warmth of her through cotton, long enough for the scent of her hair to settle in my lungs. Then she stood, brushed off her leggings, and walked to the stairs without looking back. Lock up when you leave, she said over her shoulder. And Rowan, thank you for not treating me like I'm made of glass. I sat in that attic a long time after she was gone, surrounded by the ghosts of who she used to be, feeling like I'd just been handed something fragile and alive and infinitely more dangerous than fire. I didn't know how to hold it yet, but I knew I wasn't letting go. The rumor started small, the way everything does in a place where people have nothing better to do than watch each other's windows. First, it was Mrs. Henderson just mentioning to my mom that she'd seen me coming out of Juliet's house at odd hours. Then the guy at the parts store asked if I was doing side work for the widow on Maple Crest. One of Mom's church friends left a casserole on our porch with a note that said, "Thinking of you both in prayer." The word both was underlined twice. Mom didn't say much at first. She just started asking where I'd been, her voice careful, like she was walking across thin ice. I lied, badly. Said I was helping with storm gutters, fixing a leak, anything that sounded boring enough to shut the questions down. It didn't work. By the second week, the jokes had teeth. One of the guys from high school texted a peach emoji and the words, "Your new cougar got claws?" I left him on red. Another sent a meme of a kid riding a lawnmower with the caption, "When you mow the rich widow's yard," and she tips in other ways. I deleted the thread and turned my phone off. I started avoiding Juliet's house in daylight. I'd wait until the street was empty, slip through the back gate after midnight, leave before the first bird woke up. We still met. God, we met. But every time I walked home, I felt the neighborhood watching from behind curtains. She noticed the change immediately. One night, I showed up later than usual, soaked from a sudden downpour. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and didn't smile. "You're pulling away," she said, not a question. I stepped inside, dripping on her hardwood. "It's getting loud out there." "I don't care what they say." "I do." The words came out sharper than I meant. "My mom's crying in the kitchen because Mrs. Henderson told her I'm throwing my life away. My phone won't stop buzzing with people who used to ignore me." "I'm not ashamed of you, Juliet. I'm ashamed of how easy it is for them to make me feel like I should be." She poured 2 fingers of bourbon, handed me one, kept the other. The silence stretched until it hurt. "I've been the subject of gossip before," she said finally. "When Daniel died, half the city decided I'd married him for money. The other half decided I'd driven him to the grave. I learned to live with it. I thought you were stronger than that." "I'm not strong," I said. "I'm just a guy who fixes toilets and still sleeps in his childhood bedroom. You're everything I'm not, and they keep reminding me." She set her glass down hard enough that the ice cracked. "So, what is this, Rowan? You come here when it's dark, take what you need, then disappear before the neighbors see? I'm not a secret you keep because it's convenient." "That's not, isn't it?" Her voice cut clean. "Because that's exactly what it feels like." I had no answer. Because part of me knew she was right. She walked to the living room, turned on one lamp, and dragged an old wooden chair into the circle of light. On the coffee table sat her Leica, the same one from the attic, loaded with black and white film. A single empty wine glass waited beside it. "Sit," she said. I sat. She stood behind the camera, adjusted the focus, and looked at me through the lens like she was seeing something I couldn't. "I used to do this for a living," she said. "Make people sit still long enough to show who they really are." Most couldn't handle it. They'd smile too big or look away. The ones who stayed, those were the ones worth keeping. She clicked the shutter. Once. Twice. "I thought I didn't need anyone after Daniel," she continued, voice softer now. "I was wrong. I need someone brave enough to touch me and not flinch when it burns. Someone who chooses me when it's hard, not just when it's easy." Another click. I stared at the floor. "You make me feel alive again," I said. "But you also scare the hell out of me. I don't know if I'm strong enough to hold something as dangerous as you." The room went quiet except for the rain on the roof. She stepped out from behind the camera, walked over, and stood in front of me, close enough that I had to look up. "Then go," she said, eyes wet but steady. "If I'm fire, I'd rather burn alone than ruin someone who isn't ready." I stood up so fast the chair scraped backward. My hands were shaking. "I don't want to go," I said, "but I don't know how to stay." She didn't touch me, didn't try to stop me. I walked out into the rain without an umbrella, without looking back. The door closed softly behind me. For the next month, I didn't answer her texts. I took jobs 2 towns over just to stay gone longer. I deleted every photo, every late-night voice note, every trace of her from my phone. I told myself it was mercy. Told myself I was saving us both. But every night, I still smelled lavender on my pillow and woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there. And every morning I drove past her house with the curtains drawn, wondering if she was already learning how to live without me, the way she'd lived without everyone else who'd ever left. A month later, I got a plain, cream-colored envelope in the mail. No return address, just my name in black ink. Inside was a single card, a small photography show at a gallery in Northwest Portland. Juliet Harper. New work. Opening Friday, 7 p.m. I stood in the kitchen holding it while Mom watched from the doorway, worry in her eyes. I hadn't told her anything, but she knew something had broken in me. I folded the card, slipped it into my pocket, and didn't say where I was going. Friday night I showered, put on the only button-down shirt I owned that didn't smell like pipe dope, and drove into the city. The gallery was a narrow brick space tucked between a brewery and a record store. Inside it was quiet, warm light, maybe 30 people murmuring over glasses of cheap wine. Her work was in the back room, black and white prints, large, unframed, pinned straight to the wall. Still lifes mostly, cracked coffee cups, empty chairs, rain on windows. Beautiful, lonely things. Then I saw the one in the corner, a single male hand resting on an old oak table. Strong, scarred knuckles, faint grease under the nails. At the wrist, pressed flat like it had been waiting there for years, was a dried sprig of lavender. Underneath, in her handwriting on a small white card, for the one who dared to look when everyone else only glanced. My chest caved in. I was still staring when I felt her behind me. "You came," she said, soft enough that only I could hear. I turned. She looked different. No lipstick, no armor. Just a dark gray sweater that slipped off one shoulder, jeans, hair down, and a little messy. Tired eyes, but steady. "I couldn't not come," I said. She glanced at the photograph, then back at me. "I wasn't sure you'd ever want to see me again." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the same dried sprig I'd kept since that morning by the fence. It was crushed now, brittle, but still purple. "I never stopped carrying it," I said. Her breath caught, just enough to notice. I stepped closer, close enough that no one else existed. "You once told me to kiss you while they were all watching," I said. "Now no one's watching, no neighbors, no rumors, just us." I lifted my hand, slow, and brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. "I'm not playing anymore," I said. "I'm not scared anymore. I choose you. Not because you dared me, because I can't do this without you." The gallery noise faded to nothing. She searched my face for a long second, eyes shining, then gave the smallest nod. I leaned in and kissed her. Not hungry, not desperate. Just sure. Soft, steady, like coming home after a war you didn't know you'd been fighting. Her lips trembled against mine for a heartbeat. Then she kissed me back, one hand coming up to rest against my chest, right over the place where the lavender used to live. When we pulled apart, her forehead stayed against mine. "This time it's you choosing," she whispered, voice cracking on the last word. "Yeah," I said, "and I'm not going anywhere." We stood there in the low light, surrounded by her photographs and strangers who didn't matter, holding on like we'd finally been given permission to stop running. Outside, the city kept moving. Wet streets, neon, distant horns. Inside, the only thing that existed was the quiet certainty that whatever came next, gossip, questions, years, we'd face it together. She slipped her fingers through mine. "Take me home, Rowan." I did. And for the first time in my life, home wasn't the house I grew up in. It was her.